So first of all, I just wanted to piggyback off what the last speaker said. My husband came here and legally from South Africa, and he paid $10,000 to the immigration attorney. Okay. And he had to wait a certain amount of years to show that he is a responsible citizen and that he follows all the instructions that need to be followed. Okay. I don't have a problem with anybody coming here. But like the last caller just said, there are people who actually do it the legal way. And I think that it's a slap in the face to people who think they can just walk through the border. That's number one. Number two.
I feel like it's just kind of repeating the same point, but like, I mean, my critique of it is still the same, is that like your frustration, if you waited, 10 years to come here, the frustration should be at the system that made you wait that long, not people that are like fleeing violence and, trying to escape for their lives.
Listen, those people who walk across the border, honey, they are well fed. Their hair is done. They're clean. Their clothes are clean. Their shoes are perfectly fine. I can show you picture upon picture. I would debate you any day, and let me bring out the big guns, okay? Because I will slam you with the truth. Now, okay. I have one question for you.
Okay, I'm going to answer.
Okay? One question for you.
All right.
Name one time in history, one country that socialism or communism ever worked out for them. I want you to name one time in history that it ever worked.
That was a much different direction than I was expecting.
Just name me one. That's all I want you to do is name me one successful socialist country.
Yeah. So I think the issue you're probably going to run into is like, how are you defining socialism / communism? Like, do you define it just as like a socialist party? Because if that's what you're doing, I would point you towards the MAS party in Bolivia. The MAS party has been explicitly a socialist party, and it's had an enormous reduction in poverty in Bolivia, very large, not just reduction in poverty, but also GDP expansion, just very successful, massive improvement in terms of infrastructure, very successful. But they were a socialist party, but I wouldn't really say that they've implemented socialism. It's frankly just a lot of social spending and a lot of just leftist policies. If you're defining socialism as like workers owning the means of production, I think one of the most successful examples would be Emilia Romagna in Italy. It's a region in Italy that has one of the highest concentrations of worker-owned cooperatives in the entire world, and is also one of the most livable areas in the entire world.
Is it a country, or is Italy the country that it's in?
Yeah, so Emilia Romagna is the region in Italy.
Okay, so I said entire country.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, there is obviously no country, at least that I'm aware of, that is currently an entirely worker-owned society. And so I would say that has never been implemented really. But I guess on the first point, if you're just defining it as like socialist party or communist party, the MAS party in Bolivia, very, very successful. If you're defining it as workers owning the means of production, I would say that there are pockets of success that you can find.
Pockets, but no country has ever been successful, correct?
So like I said, I mean, frankly, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not aware of any country that have like really ever implemented an entirely worker-owned society. Some people
really. So what about Venezuela? What about Venezuela? What about Cuba?
Okay, awesome. So now we're getting into a different definition of socialism. So now
there's different definitions, so not just one definition. Now we've got a separate definition, right?
Well, so some people define socialism, I guess, as just state planning. The government running the country, and that's what I guess you would say that kind of with Cuba. Even then, it was never really that, but they have an enormous amount of centrally planned society in Cuba. Venezuela, they never had like full central planning. They also never had full worker ownership. They did have some programs to try and incentivize the creation of worker-owned co-ops, and they had limited success. But I would say the biggest problem with Venezuela's society was that they remained too dependent on oil, and so they had an enormous amount of social spending, kind of what they did in Bolivia. But the problem with Venezuela is they didn't diversify their economy in the same way that Bolivia has been. And so Venezuela, when there was a massive drop in oil prices, things just really fell apart. And so that's kind of that. But that wasn't really a failure of either state planning or worker ownership. That was just an undiversified economy.
Really,
yeah,
that's where you think the problem in Venezuela lies? I mean, if there's anybody listening that's from Venezuela or has family there, I would love to hear their feedback on that, because I actually don't believe that to be
yeah.
true
So you
whatsoever.
you can track almost all of the really big problems going on in Venezuela right now to when there was a massive reduction in the price of oil. And that's when you just saw things just start to spiral out of control. And now then things
Right.
started to build on top of each other from there. And so another society, though, just to be honest to the original question, there was Yugoslavia, I believe under the dictator's name was Tito. They basically implemented some form of a worker-owned
Did you just say
society.
dictator? The dictator?
In Yugoslavia, yeah.
Right. So you're saying that, wait, you're going to tell me about a successful
No, not at
socialist.
all. No, Yugoslavia wasn't very successful at all under Tito. But that's kind
Mhm.
of what I was saying, is that some people might say that that is like an implementation of what I'm advocating for, but I would argue no, because that was a very undemocratic society. Well, they did have elements of worker ownership. It was incredibly tough
Mhm.
any of the ways that it was run.
So let me just ask you this. Since you're for immigration and people, the borders being open, um, what country just actually lets you walk in and say, I'm going to be a citizen now? No,
You know,
there's no country that does that.
it's funny you say that. So for the first 100 years of this country, we effectively had open borders.
That was a long time ago, honey. We're talking about present day.
Okay.
What country just allows people to walk in and say, we're going to be citizens?
So within the European Union, they actually have, with the Schengen Agreement, basically open borders. If you're in Austria, you can freely travel to Germany.
But it's traveling. It's not becoming a citizen.
Well, no, it's actually not just traveling. You can also go and work, and that's the thing. Is it's effectively open borders in terms of traveling and work. It's very integrated.
Not an actual citizen, where the people of that country are supporting those people.
So you are actually. So for example, if you're in Austria, if you're a citizen of Austria, and you go to Germany and you have an accident, say you break your leg, you can go to a German hospital and receive the health care that you
okay, but you
receive.
don't. Come on. You know what I'm talking about. There's a big difference between coming in and working and going home. Then, and if you propose that, I'd like to ask you this: why would we let people from Mexico come here, work, and then take their wages back to support the Mexican economy?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple levels of it. One, I think it's kind of a rising tide lifts all ships sort of thing. I think that if countries in Latin America are doing better, you will also see countries within the United States doing better. I'm sorry, not within the United States. You would see the United States doing better. Sorry. And so no, I don't think that like it's like a zero-sum game. I think that it would actually benefit the U.S. if other countries in Latin America were doing better. But also, I do think that we bear a certain amount of responsibility for all the damage that we've done in Latin America over the last several decades. We can get into that if you want to. But no, yeah, I don't see that as an inherent problem.
Really, that's interesting. May I ask you how old you are?
24.
Oh, so you're fairly young.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I mean, are you willing to have people cross a border and come to, and are you going to take care of them and pay all their bills for them? I mean, if that's what you think is we should do as a country, I think that the country gets to speak, right? We get to say, this is what we vote for and this is what we don't vote for. But I mean, since you feel so strongly, would that be something you'd be willing to do?
Yeah, so first let me say, yeah, of course, any reforms that are made, I want them to be done democratically. I don't believe in like authoritarian rule. I of course think that this would need to be implemented through a democratic process. That being said, though, I'm not advocating for people to come and we just pay all of their bills. The vast majority of people coming here literally just want to work and they want to provide for their families and they want to make a better life for themselves. And so, no, I don't think it's really accurate to say like, oh, just pay all their bills for them, because that's not really what's on the table.
Really? So what do you think about the $450,000 that immigrants are going to be getting?
So I'm sure you wouldn't bring something up without like actually having researched it. So like when you talk about that $450,000, like who would be eligible for that?
You tell me. I know who's eligible for it.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So I'm like I said, I'm sure you wouldn't bring that up without like knowing what you're talking about. So like, yeah, well, maybe you could like enlighten us all, like for who exactly is eligible for that?
Mm-hmm. You tell me. I'm eligible, right?
No, yeah, let's hear it.
So somebody, the point is, right?
Well,
that people who were separated.
You made a specific claim. I want to stay on the point. So when you bring up the $450,000, who is being talked about getting that money? Is it like a specific group of people, or what is it?
Okay, so the specific group of people are people that were separated at the border.
And what are they doing? Like, what is it? Just like a check that's going to be handed out, or is there something more to it?
Listen, I don't care what it is. I don't care if they pay them $450,000 in food. I don't care if they give them $450,000 in gas, as long as it comes out of my pocket. It seems really crazy to think that anybody should get that money for coming to our country and breaking a law. You break a law, you pay the consequence. If you are such an irresponsible parent to bring your child across the border and do it illegally and put them in that type of danger, why would you get money for that? I don't care.
So this is super relevant. The people that are coming here, the people that are in talks of getting that money, these are people that are suing the U.S. government because they were victimized by the U.S. family separation policy. Now,
they were victimized by coming into our country illegally. They're victimized by coming here illegally.
This is part of the problem. No, so this is part of the problem. Asylum is a very legal process. You can come and claim asylum. And so there were, for example, 60 families under Donald Trump's administration that came in through legal ports of entry. They didn't come through non-legal ports of entry. They did everything exactly right, and they were ripped away from their families. These are people. These were brutalized by the policies of the United States.
Brutalized.
Yes, brutalized.
Brutalized.
Yeah.
Have you seen where these people stay? And by the way, Obama's the one that built those cages. But have you seen where these people stay? There's phones. There's basketball courts. There's education. They live better in there than they did in their own country. Really?
So I mean, there are images of the literal cages that people can go look up, and you can tell me if that's something that you would be interested in living in. I'm sure you wouldn't be. But no, what I'm saying though is that being ripped apart from your family when you came through a legal port of entry is very much up for, I would say, some sort of restitution. I think that these are people that are suing the government. The $450,000 is the maximum payout that's being discussed. So that's not what would happen in all of these lawsuits. And it's also not everybody that's coming across. It's not everybody that was separated from their family. These are very specific cases.
Because you say that you're coming across because something's happening in your country doesn't make it true. There's lots of people who come here and claim that, and it's not the case.
And that's why we have an asylum process. That's why they come and claim asylum, and then their claims are adjudicated in a court of law.
Well, if their claims are not adjudicated, then they shouldn't get the money, correct?
So so that's a different thing. So asylum is what I was referring to when their claims are discussed in the court of law. The thing is the outside, the people that are suing the U.S. government. That's an outside thing. I'm talking specifically to come and claim asylum is not illegal.
Correct.
Yeah.
But you have to actually be telling the truth.
Yeah, so you can come and you are telling the truth when you say you are claiming for asylum, and then your asylum claim is verified. Yeah.
You think that just because somebody wants to get into this country that they're telling the truth?
So oftentimes, yes, people are telling the truth, unless you have some sort of statistics that show otherwise. But no, that's the thing, though. It's an enormous. Wait. Just to stay on the point, though.
I can show you pictures. Where did they get those new sneakers? Where did they get their new shoes? Where did they get half those people are heavy set? Did they not eat? I mean, they're starving. They're walking hundreds of miles, right?
Let's stay on this point.
Let's stay on this
point. Okay, so frankly, I could not care less what kind of shoes they have. I want them to have good shoes, but like if you say the shoes are too nice, I would say that's a very weird thing to be upset about.
How do these people walk thousands or hundreds and hundreds of miles from country to country? They're showered, they're dressed nicely, they have clean shoes on, they're well fed. Okay, you can see it. They look like a bus just dropped them off right to walk across the border, because that's exactly what happens. And you are naive and ridiculous to ever think anything but. But you're 24, so I couldn't expect you to be any different.
No,
but
of course
if you
not.
feel like you want to take all your time and all your money and you want to pay for people, then you should go ahead and do that. But you know what? There's a lot of people in this country that are tired of the bullshit.
Okay. All right.
Have a good day.
Okay.
Have a good day. Yep, that's it. I'm done. Yep.
Okay. All right. You have a good one. Do you know how to leave, or do you figure it out? All right. Awesome. That was a fun one. Hello?